Today's back here with another episode, and today we are going over the absolutely insane opening kickoff schedule for college football. College football just keeps growing and growing in popularity. Obviously, we've seen the new age of college football with the NIL money, with the transfer portal. Everything is just getting more and more exciting. Last year, the hype really lifted off with obviously the video game coming out, and this year they are taking full advantage of them starting before the NFL. You have an absolute insane slate of games going across Thursday to Monday. So they're taking advantage of the days, of the matchups. Everything looks immaculate on the schedule. We're going to go over the spreads in this game, even though it is very, very early. The spreads that we do have here, we are going to go over, make our picks. Obviously, we love to throw units as well. And we're going to go over who we think are going to be the starting quarterbacks, starting at certain positions as well, key impact players. It is going to be a little too early to do this, obviously, like I said, as there are competitions going on. But we're going to do this anyway. We're just going to go over the games in general, as this is probably the most insane opening kickoff schedule I have seen since I've been watching college football. Let's get right into it. First off, we go over with the traditional Week 0 game. We got Kansas State, Iowa State, a Big 12 matchup. Two teams that I believe are going to be contenders in the Big 12. Last year in our Week 0 matchup, we had Georgia Tech and Florida State. Florida State came into the year with high hopes with DJ Uiagalelei, obviously just missing the college football playoffs the year before. They were a huge favorite. I think they were a 10-plus point favorite in this game. And Georgia Tech ended up upsetting them as a 10-point underdog. They ended up winning on a game-winning field goal. Obviously, Florida State was a huge dumpster fire last season, and they weren't favored in much more games. But like I said, going back, this game, we got Kansas State, Iowa State. Kansas State is -3, and this game's in Ireland. I really like Kansas State going into the year. If anybody knows me, they know how much I love Avery Johnson. I think Avery Johnson's potential is through the roof. We're talking about last year, a guy that was a first-time starter. He had over 3,400 total yards. He had over 30 touchdowns. He's a huge threat in the run game. He's as good of a rushing quarterback as anybody in the country. And throwing the ball, he realized the ability to make every throw on the field as well. Physically, this guy is so gifted. Now, last year, he just needed a little more consistency. Obviously, had an NFL running back DJ Giddens last year, which helped him out a ton. This year, he doesn't, but I love what Kansas State did. They really got better. They add a ton of solid receivers around him, and they add Lincoln Cure as well, a top tight end guy coming in from the transfer portal. And then for Iowa State, I feel like Iowa State definitely lost a lot. I mean, you look at Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel. Those were two NFL receivers, early NFL receivers in the NFL draft. They're gone. Rocco Beck still remains, who had a great season last year, led them to the Big 12 championship. They obviously got smoked in that game, but I expect Rocco Beck to come in and be a top 20 QB in the country. I think these are two top 20, top 25 QBs in the country. I think it's a great matchup, but like I said, what Kansas State really gained in this game and what Iowa State lost, I think Kansas State's going to be better in the long run than Iowa State. And I think they're going to come out a little better as well. They're -3 in this game. That's what I would take. I would take Kansas State -3. It's going to be very exciting conference matchup. And again, two contenders in this conference. It's going to be a huge game for both of these teams to start the season. And it's in Ireland. Pretty cool there. Second game, we got Thursday to start off week 1, Nebraska, Cincinnati. I don't really have much to say about this game. Obviously, all eyes are going to be on Dylan Raiola. I don't know if the college football schedule makers, whoever made the schedule, I don't know if they're feeding into the Patrick Mahomes, Dylan Raiola comparisons, because this game is at Arrowhead Stadium, which I thought was crazy when I first saw this. But it's going to be interesting to see how Dylan Raiola starts off the season. Everybody, another super prospect that people had high hopes for last year. Again, I didn't think we got what we should have out of Dylan Raiola. I expected him to have definitely a better season than he did have. But again, Nebraska got impressed to put him in. He didn't sit at all. Obviously, he was the most talented quarterback in their room. And that kind of hinders development. And it's kind of hard to, sit a quarterback and wait for a quarterback for a long period of time in college football. Because, again, these guys only have 3 to 4 years, especially if you're a super prospect like Dylan Raiola. So they want to get them in right away. Did it hinder his development? I don't know. We'll see how he starts the season this year. That's going to be very interesting. Cincinnati, again, I just expect them to be a mediocre Power 4 team. I think Nebraska's going to win this game. Spread isn't out for that game, though. Next up, we have Friday, August 29th. First game, we have Auburn Baylor. Auburn's a minus 1.5 point favorite on the road. I really love Auburn in this game. I think Auburn is actually going to destroy Baylor in this game. I would definitely lean towards Auburn. I still love Jackson Arnold. Again, I think Oklahoma has been going through a rough patch. They obviously had a huge offseason themselves, but they lose Jackson Dart. They upgrade at the quarterback position, actually, with John Mateer. But Jackson Arnold, I think, is going to be a absolute great pickup for Auburn. I think he's going to set them on the right track. I love what they did in the receiver room as well. Getting a receiver from Georgia Tech and a receiver from Wake Forest. Their offensive line is great as well. They have three starters coming back, and they also have two starters coming in that were pretty high touted in the transfer portal. I think Jackson Arnold and this offense is just going to be miles ahead of Baylor. Baylor has a QB competition as well. Robertson and White, two QBs I'm not really that high on at all. White obviously is coming from Auburn, which if he starts, it could be a revenge type of game. But I think Auburn is in a spot in the SEC again where Baylor's just not going to be able to keep up in this game. Is Auburn going to be a contender in the SEC? I don't think so, but I do think they're going to have a better season than last year. I do think they definitely made the right moves. Georgia Tech, Colorado is the 8 p.m. game that night. For the Auburn Baylor game, I don't know if I mentioned that game. There isn't a time for yet. Georgia Tech, Colorado. All eyes are going to be on Colorado and Dion as always, but I think Colorado is not going to be ready for this matchup at all. When we look at a Georgia Tech team with Haynes King, very, very reminiscent of a Taysom Hill type of player. They also bring Jamal Haynes back. They bring their five top receivers back, bring their offensive line back. This is a team that's really running it back from last year, and they were a decent team in the ACC last year. When you look at Colorado, they have a ton of holes. I absolutely love Caden Salter. I mean, the competition between Caden Salter and Juju Lewis, I definitely think Caden Salter is going to win that. We go back 2 years of Caden Salter. He was one of the best players in college football. I love Caden Salter, and I'm going to be rooting for Colorado, but with just the returnees of Georgia Tech, I think Georgia Tech is going to be too much for them, at least to start. I mean, when you're playing a team that's full of returns, bringing back all the receivers, bringing back their quarterback, bringing back their star running back, and you got to go up against that when you just had a complete turnover of players. I think it's going to be way too much for Colorado. It is going to be in Boulder. Georgia Tech's a minus 3.5 point favorite. I would definitely take Georgia Tech in this game. Saturday at 12 o'clock. Now, this game is super controversial because it is at 12. I think it's really because ESPN just gets the hedge over Fox. This is going to be a Fox game because it's going to be at Ohio State. We have Texas at Ohio State. We're looking at two top 5 to top 10 teams this whole college football season. They're going to start out as two top 5 teams. Texas is +3. Ohio State is -3. Now, these teams definitely lost a lot. I think Texas had 12 NFL players drafted. I think Ohio State had even more. Ohio State has two of the best players in the country on both sides of the ball. In my opinion, the two best players in the country on both sides of the ball. When you look at Jeremiah Smith on offense, Caleb Downs on defense, I think they have the two best players there. Obviously, Cardinal Tate comes back for them, which is absolutely huge. This guy was garnering, I heard, $4 million in NIL offers. Again, we don't know where those are coming from. It could be in schools that he would never even consider. And then we have Egan Boosin as well, the defensive back, joining them. They do have Max Clare as a transfer tight end coming in. Both these teams have pretty good transfer tight ends, as well as Texas has a transfer tight end coming in from Cal. And then they have Wingo and Moore coming back for Texas. You also have Wisner and Baxter coming back for Texas. Arch Manning is starting. What a first game as a full-time starter for Arch Manning. This is going to be absolutely insane. Arch Manning at the defending national champions. Where do I lean in this game? Texas is +3. Ohio State is -3. I don't know where I lean. It is going to be very tough. Now, before we get into anything, for Ohio State, I 100 believe Julian Sayin is going to win this job. Again, I have kind of a hot take on this QB room. I don't think Lincoln Kihos is even going to be have a chance to be a starter, even though it's between Julian Saint and Lincoln Keels. I think it should be Julian Saint. Julian Saint, a five-star super prospect and a player that these Ohio State players were endorsing. Emeka Buka said great things about him. Trayvon Henderson were saying great things about him. They already acted like he was going to be the starter next year for them. And for Tavion St. Clair, I heard he's not even in the mix for the starting job, which is absolutely insane. You're talking about a generational talent. And for Tavion St. Clair, I don't know if he's ever going to be the full-time starter at Ohio State, because you look at Julian Saint, he was at Ohio State in this room for 1 year. He obviously has the edge, but he's going to stay there for 2 to 3 years as well. Is a five-star prospect in Tavion St. Clair going to be able to get an opportunity in this room? I just don't think so, especially if Julian Saint is the guy that we all think he can be. With the talent around him, how is he ever going to play bad enough to pull him for Tavion St. Clair? Do I think Tavion St. Clair has a higher ceiling than Julian Saint? 100%. But with the timelines of these two guys, and Julian Saint already look like having the edge on him, I don't see a way Tavion St. Clair gets in. And I think Tavion St. Clair is going to eventually have to transfer out. Again, we don't know. We saw something a couple of years back, and Kyle McCord, a highly touted prospect, obviously having to move on. You never know, but I don't think Julian Saint is going to be bad with the surrounding guys on him. And I think we might see a possibility of Tavion St. Clair never getting an opportunity and transferring out. They said they were going to use him in packages this year, I guess, to keep him involved, keep him happy. But we'll see. So I think Julian Saint is going to be a starter for Ohio State. And now getting into my pick, I like Texas +3. I think Texas has enough talent to compete with Ohio State, but I think Julian Saint as really his first game starting in college football, I'm taking Arch Manning. I'm taking the team that I think that has the better quarterback. I think it's an even playing field pretty much with talent. And I think Arch Manning is just going to be much more prepared for this game than Julian Saint is. Again, Ohio State, you definitely say, has a little more talent, but it's pretty even. I would definitely go Arch Manning here and Texas +3. I think it's going to be Arch Manning's coming out party. Now we get into Utah UCLA. It's going to be played at the Rose Bowl Stadium. All eyes are going to be on Nico Iamaleava. Now, Nico Iamaleava, a very tough situation that we went over. A lot of teams stayed off of Nico Iamaleava because they didn't like what he did from a moral standpoint. I mean, we're talking about a five-star guy that got greedy, wanted more money at Tennessee. There was rumors that he wasn't even going to play in the college football playoff game, which news for Tennessee fans and for him. They didn't really need him to play anyway. They got absolutely smoked by Ohio State in that game. He wants more money. He says he's going to hold out of practice. I think Tennessee said they're done with him. I think Nico's camp really was not expecting that at all. He moves on to UCLA for less money and a worse situation. UCLA is a far worse situation, and Nico Iamaleava definitely didn't predicate his overall future and the big picture over the right now. Now, against Utah's a minus 2.5 point favorite. I really love Utah. I really love what they did. I mean, they added about 6 receivers. Their O-line could possibly be the best in the country with everybody returning. You have Devin Dampier coming in from New Mexico. A guy that had 4,000 total yards. His leading receiver comes in with him as well. They bringing a running back from Washington State who's supposed to be really good. This team could be a contender in the Big 12 right away. And for this UCLA team, don't get trapped. This UCLA team had a complete turnover of coaches. They lost a ton of people to the transfer portal. They were one of the worst Power 4 conference teams last year. We were telling you last year, just bet against UCLA every game. Now, Utah, like I said, I absolutely love what they did. I think first-time bettors, again, people that are seeing a Nico Iamaleava hype, and they're going to say +2.5 against Utah. I'm definitely taking that. Please don't. I expect Utah to definitely win this game handily. I'm going Utah -2.5. But again, it's going to be a crazy game to watch, a must-tune-in game, as all eyes are going to be on Nico Iamaleava after the first-time decision we've ever seen a holdout in the NIL era. Then we got Tennessee-Syracuse. Tennessee is going to be -12.5 against Syracuse. I expect Tennessee to absolutely roll over Syracuse. Syracuse just lost way too much. Trevor Pena obviously goes to Penn State. Meeks goes to the NFL. McCord goes to the NFL. They did what they could in the offseason. Again, I don't expect them to be a bad team, but they're just not going to be ready. It's so funny we go from UCLA to Tennessee. Joey Aguilar goes from UCLA to Tennessee. He's going to be their starting quarterback, I believe, with the QB battle. He comes in from Appalachian State. Him and Nico basically switch spots in the offseason. I expect Tennessee to really handle Syracuse pretty handily. It's a minus 12.5 point spread. I'm not going to make a pick on it. I don't know if they're going to cover the spread necessarily or not. It is a large spread, but I expect them to win by 10 plus for sure. Next game, we have Alabama, Florida State. Alabama is minus 12.5 point favorite. We're going to another quarterback battle with Ty Simpson and Keelan Russell. Keelan Russell, an absolute five-star super prospect. Again, I think he has a higher ceiling than Ty Simpson. But Ty Simpson has been in Alabama for 3 years. Again, another five-star prospect. And I think he's easily going to get the job. How we were saying with Dylan Raiola might have came in a little too early last year. And I felt the same way with DJ Lagway coming in and out with the injuries to Graham Mertz. I think Keelan Russell has a great opportunity at Alabama. I think he's going to be able to sit a year, learn, take everything in, and I think he's going to be able to come in next year. I don't think Ty Simpson is going to be able to hold him up for 2 years if he decides to stay. But again, it's going to be interesting to see how everything pans out. Obviously, with Kalen DeBoer, not the season they wanted to have last year. They dropped a huge game against Vanderbilt. They didn't make a 12-team college football playoffs when they usually don't miss a 14 college football playoff. So they have a lot to prove. They open up against Florida State. I think it's going to be a pretty easy matchup for them. Florida State is a team that just lost a ton to the transfer portal. Obviously, they were a dumpster fire last year. They do bring in Thomas Castellanos, which was a standout quarterback last year at Boston College. He provided a lot of upsets as well. Very reminiscent to a guy of Kyler Murray, small guy, super athletic, big arm. But I don't think he's going to be able to hold off this Alabama team at all. I think Alabama is going to have a lot to prove this year. And I think Alabama, what they were able to keep with Jeremy Bernard, Jam Miller on this offense, when you look at Justin Jefferson, LD Overton, they kept all their key players, Alabama. And I think Alabama is just going to be too much of a powerhouse for Florida State. Minus 12.5. I think Alabama's going to blow the doors off of them. I'm taking Alabama minus 12.5 for sure. Then for our night game on this insane slate, the night game that overrided Texas, Ohio State, we have LSU Clemson. And this game is deservingly so. I mean, I don't know which game I would pick, but this game is featuring two possible future first-round QBs. We're talking about two teams also that could be in the top 5 to top 10. This could be a top 5 or top 10 matchup. We'll see when everything breaks. LSU rumored to have the number one offseason. They add Nick Anderson, which is huge from their receiving losses. And for Clemson, Clemson used the transfer portal as well. They got some major additions from the transfer portal. They got a star-studded receiving room too. Cade Klubnik comes back for another year. Garrett Nussmeier comes back for another year. This is going to be an absolutely insane matchup. Now, Garrett Nussmeier was part of an insane matchup against USC. I believe it was the Sunday slate of last year in week 1. He lost that matchup. They're getting plus 2.5 because it is at Clemson, but they're saying LSU is the better team. If LSU's only getting plus 2.5 on the road, and this is a tough matchup to pick. People are very high on Clemson. People think Clemson is going to be a top 3 team this year. It's going to be tough because one of these teams is going to have a week 1 loss too. I like Garrett Nussmeier a lot more than I like Cade Klubnik. I think he's a little bigger. I think he's super talented, can make any throw on the field. But Cade Klubnik is growing on me as well. This is a tough matchup to pick. Gun to my head, I'm going with the points with LSU. I'd rather take the points. Again, I do believe in Garrett Nussmeier a little more. I also love Clemson as a team. I think Clemson is going to really reign the ACC, but we'll see. Then going into the Sunday slate, we have South Carolina, Virginia Tech. This is going to be at Mercedes-Benz Arena. South Carolina definitely has a lot of hype to them. We have Lenore Sellers as another first-round QB. He's a project QB, though. Again, I think he's far ahead of other project QBs. When you look at Anthony Richardson and others, I think he's far ahead of them. I think his short intermediate game isn't as bad. Obviously, has a huge arm, huge frame, biggest threat to run the ball possibly in the country with his size. Dylan Stewart on the defensive side of the ball as well. We're talking about two guys on the South Carolina team that could be two of the best in the country. Virginia Tech, obviously super exciting as well with Kyron Drones, another rushing QB. It should be a great game. South Carolina is a minus 9.5 point favorite. I don't think they're going to cover the 9.5, but I do think they're going to win this game, obviously. But that's going to be a great game. And then going into the last game, the night game on Sunday, possibly the most anticipated game for me. We have Notre Dame for Miami. This game's going to be at Hard Rock Stadium. Notre Dame, I think CJ Carr is definitely going to win this matchup for the quarterback battle. I think he is definitely going to win. He's super hyped up. Do I expect him to really have the reins of this offense game one? No, but they have possibly the best running back in the country in Jeremiah Love in the backfield. The defense lost a lot, but they were able to do a lot in the offseason as well, as they have more money than anybody. It's going to be interesting to see Miami as well with Carson Beck. Carson Beck, a guy that was supposed to be the first quarterback taken this time last year in this year's NFL draft. His season did not go the way he wanted to. Miami gets another top quarterback transfer portal ad after they got Cam Ward. They get the top quarterback in my eyes this year in Carson Beck. It's going to be super excited, but for Carson Beck, unfortunately, as big of a fan as I am of him, he has a super tough matchup for week one. Both of these teams for week one to get a week one loss. Again, we're talking about an independent team in Notre Dame, Miami in the ACC. It shouldn't be too tough, but you don't want to start out as one of these big teams with college football playoff hopes as you get a week one loss. But I think Notre Dame is definitely going to win this game. I think Notre Dame has the complete identity to win this game, running the ball and defense. I think Jeremiah Love is absolutely going to explode in this game. And I think Carson Beck of Miami with just a ton of turnover when you look at Elijah Arroyo, Xavier Restrepo, Damian Martinez. I also think Mario Cristobal, I'm not that high on him. I think Marcus Freeman is going to outcoach him in this game. I honestly think minus 2.5 is a steal in this game, and I would definitely take Notre Dame. That wraps up our way too early preview of this opening week in college football. This slate is going to be absolutely unreal. Me and my friends, we're going to have 2-3 TVs out watching every game that we could. And for college football fans, you got Thursday all the way into Sunday. I also forgot Monday, you have UNC versus TCU. You're going to have Bill Belichick's debut to college football. That's going to be an insane game as well. I think UNC is favored in that game. I think that might be a little fool's goal for people. I would probably take TCU in that matchup, especially with all that's going on with UNC. Obviously, the headlines, I don't know how focused they're going to be. They have a ton of turnover, but it's going to be interesting to see that on the Monday. But again, Thursday to Monday, full college football week one slate. If you're a college football fan, you got to love it. And we just wanted to preview the schedule a little way too early for you guys. Obviously, the week 0 game, I absolutely love too. I had to throw that in there. That wraps up this episode.